We are two everyday, middle-aged, blonde girlfriends from the Midwest that met during a very painful life transition that neither of us planned or wanted to face. We've built an invaluable friendship, and as we fumble through each unexpected thing that life throws at us, we laugh a lot. Sharing our story is therapeutic for us, and we hope entertaining and somehow helpful to you. In previous episodes, we shared the top 10 things we hate about online dating, a confession implicating us in crime, Black Book Confessions, a very compelling dumpster fire, and how an important case was cracked wide open. In this episode, we have an honest and vulnerable discussion about the most unexpected life event we've experienced, divorce. The tone is not as light today as we share some truths we've had to face. You will hear a little about how we met and our transparent personal perspectives about painful aspects of divorce. In future episodes, we will discuss the misfortunes of setting up a YouTube account, being a fall risk, unexpected catcalls, ghosting, and our take on TV series like The McBee Dynasty, Real American Cowboys.
Let me write what comes next. We're girls on a mission. We don't need to be perfect. Just honest, just real, just figuring it out over chips and salt. So we'll crack the case. Give me the pen, write our story right. We came flying, honestly, we're gonna be alright.
Welcome to the JK Podcast, where we talk about when life is unexpected. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Kelly Jo.
Kelly Jo, probably one of the most unexpected events people have happen in their lives is divorce, right?
Well, for sure.
I mean, I say that all the time. Nobody gets married thinking they're going to get divorced.
No.
I've been divorced twice, which is something I didn't think I'd ever say
Yeah.
online for a lot of
Yeah.
people to hear. It took me a
Yeah.
long time to not have a lot of shame around that. I was married the first time just over 10 years, and the second time it's tricky.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Tricky timeline.
Yeah, for sure. I never, ever, ever thought that I would be divorced. It is very unexpected, and it is hard, to swallow the shame. But I was married 28 years, and I've been divorced 7 years. That's actually how we met.
That is. I signed up for divorce care. I looked at divorce care classes a lot in the past, and it just didn't seem to fit with what I needed schedule-wise and what I had going on with my kids. And this time that I did sign up, it was really close to me. It was on a night that my kids were going to be with their dad. I prayed, I'm like, Lord, if nothing else comes of this, I just want to meet one friend.
Aw, that's nice. Well, I would say you're the best thing that came out of that year, but I was facing some depression again. I was angry about some things, but I had processed a lot of things and I had dug through a lot of things, but there's so many layers. I thought that was time it might be good for me. I remember when I got there wondering if I should be there because nobody else had been divorced that long. It seemed like the people that were there were just going through the thick of it right then, or trying to decide, do I stay married? Do I not? I just remember feeling like, I don't know if I should be here. I feel a little silly that I've waited years, but I'm glad I did. And yes, our friendship came out of that. And as I heard you say, share some things there, I just really could relate to you. And I think we have kind of a similar background and we face some similar things. And so, it's good friendship. And it is the best thing that came out of not only that, but that year for me.
Yeah, for me too, for sure. We're going to talk today about why we hate divorce.
Yeah. I mean, as if anybody who's been through it needs to know.
Yeah.
Have you ever talked to somebody who's divorced who doesn't say they hate it?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, maybe it was necessary.
Yeah.
But the process of it, the effect it has, I guess.
Right. I think a conversation that you and I have had a lot is, depending on the translation of the Bible that you read, it will say God hates divorce.
Yeah.
And I remember growing up in a pretty conservative religious tradition, knowing that it was just not something that you took lightly.
Right.
And I never would have thought that would be my story, that I would be divorced. Right. But I remember in kind of the aftermath of filing for divorce and life settling around you, thinking about that verse, and then just having this moment where I'm like, I hate divorce.
Right.
Like, I get why God hates it because
Exactly.
I hate it.
Who doesn't hate divorce? Of course he hates it.
Yeah.
I wrestled with it just to even be okay with this is the truth of what's happening in my life, because it felt like such a big failure, especially in the context of a religious background. I'm just reminded of this now. I would have to do more research and make sure this is credible, but there was a book I read that I would highly recommend, The Life-Saving Divorce, and it was written by a Christian. She explains a lot. One of the things she said, and this is paraphrased, so I might get a little bit wrong, but until the King James translation, it wasn't translated that way.
Right.
What it really said is God hates the violence of divorce. He hates the violence that is caused, or when you are harmed by a person who is supposed to love and protect
Yeah.
you. That violence that is done is what he hates. I remember talking to my brother he was a missionary for a while and he's a pastor, and that was kind of his point too, is like half the people in the church are divorced now, but yeah, who doesn't hate divorce?
Right.
Who doesn't? And so why wouldn't God hate it? But
Absolutely. I think for me, early on, I felt a lot of judgment.
yeah.
I want to say this really carefully, not from everybody in my life. I guess I'll just be really black and white about it. I remember having a conversation with you once after divorce care. It might even come up in the conversation of divorce care. I think the facilitator asked us if we're ever angry with God. And I remember saying in that session, I've never been angry with God about this, but I have been very angry with church people.
Yeah.
And a lot of judgment came my way from church people. And that was very hurtful to me. I didn't feel that judgment in my extended family, with my coworkers, with my close friends. I mean, I was already struggling with what does this
right.
mean for me as a Christian, and then the judgment that came on top of it. And it wasn't necessarily like people were saying things to me directly.
Right.
It was people who I had had relationships for a while were now very icy to me
Yeah.
and started to treat my children differently. I hate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for someone like me, who I know that I have had a tendency to be people pleasing a little, I've grown in that area and I'm healthier all the time. I guess what I'm trying to say is some of the judgment for me probably was self-imposed. Well, I certainly was judging myself. And yeah, I felt it too, for sure, blatantly. But also, I think that I self-imposed or projected, but sometimes assuming what people were thinking because maybe they were acting different or because whatever. I remember thinking about Don Francisco. He was a singer, kind of a storyteller in his singing, and he was somebody I listened to growing up. And he had a song on one of his records. That's how old it was, like a
Okay.
vinyl
Those are coming back.
record. Are they?
Yeah.
Okay, like the big ones. He was talking before one of the songs, and he said, divorced people are some of the most hurting people you will ever meet. And for whatever reason, that has played through my mind over and over and over. Him saying that all those years ago on that record, that, okay, I'm trying not to get emotional. It's a hurt you don't understand
Yeah.
unless you've walked through it.
Absolutely. I remember saying to somebody when I was in the process of getting divorced, nobody ever knows what goes on in a marriage
No.
except the two people who are in it and God. And I think there are people who would have looked at, our situations and made whatever assumptions
Yeah.
based on what they saw out in public.
Right.
And we were living something very different behind closed doors.
Correct.
I think about that all the time now when I know that somebody is going through a divorce, because that is what's so hard. You don't want to be somebody who's out there like just spilling the tea.
Right.
And yet people, they're drawing their own conclusions,
Yeah.
and you just have to ignore all of it. It's hard.
It's really hard. And to the point with some of our background where, in a lot of ways I was hiding it or protecting
Yeah.
because I felt an obligation to, I just wanted to be the wife I was supposed to be. I wanted
Yeah.
to be a good wife, and I had a distorted definition of what that meant. But when you're in the middle of things, it's hard to see clearly in some situations, and things get so foggy.
Yeah.
And I think that you hear the term gaslighting and things like that a lot today. What I realized is that this happened for long after I was divorced. I was actually continuing to gaslight myself, weaponizing, I guess, my empathy against myself, gaslighting myself, and feeling like the most insidious thing that came out of it for me is I had lost myself so much to the point, like, I didn't trust myself. I didn't know what to believe, what not to believe. Is this my discernment? Is it just my head? I was just not in touch at all with my gut. And so there was this constant anxiety of making the wrong decision. And I'm still in that process, but just learning how to be in touch with myself enough to know, like, I was given discernment too. God gives me discernment. I have a sound mind. And to get into touch with my gut and what my gut tells me and about what's right and what's not right.
Right. You touched on this too. For me, especially after my second divorce, I was so devastated by the fact all I'd ever wanted in my life was to be a wife and a mom.
Yeah.
And twice, the role of wife, I felt like that it's something that had been taken from me, that I hadn't done it well. I mean, I wrestled with that for a long time, that was something that I really wanted, that it felt like I couldn't have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless I was willing to just be treated poorly
Right.
forever.
Right.
You have a plan for your life and a plan for your future, and when that just disappears out from under you, it's a hard place to be.
Yeah, and not only having the role of wife being taken away from you, but you don't want it for your kids either. Them having a traditional intact family, you don't want that taken away from you or from them.
Yeah.
That's hard too. I know I had a lot of pressure for a long time about, can I state a good enough reason about why I'm divorced so that it will be acceptable to other people without going into a 2-hour story.
Yeah.
How do I do that? And without being bitter, without getting bitter, without sounding bitter, how can I speak the truth, but also be respectful about it and concise? That was the problem I had.
Yeah.
I was judging myself so much that I felt like there was only 1 or 2 acceptable reasons that people should get divorced ever. And if it doesn't fit into that neat little box, then what am I going to say so that I will still be accepted? When it comes to things like church, I thought, have I just disqualified myself from any kind of service, from any kind of anything?
Right.
Do I have to hand in my membership card? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is the distorted thinking that you get to. And then I remember my therapist saying, you've told me your story, your background. You were really respectful about it. I see a lot of compassion, but also hurt. Why can't you just say, I lost my ability to trust in this person in a relationship? It was 1 sentence. And I thought, well, I mean, I guess I could. I don't think anybody's asked me where I have to use that sentence.
Right.
I don't want to blame it on this, but, you know, I do realize, too, where I am in life. We went into that marriage so ill-prepared. We were 20 years old. You know, we were so young. Our brain wasn't even fully developed. But I didn't know what I needed to know or what I didn't know. There's a lot of things about myself I know that I wouldn't have known had I not gone through everything that I went through.
Yeah.
You know.
Anyway, that's well said.
I do think for me, part of what I was angry about, I mean, I was intentional, Jenny. I was so intentional from the time I got married and especially the time that I started having children about what I wanted my future to look like. And everything I did was with that goal in mind. And I didn't do it perfectly. But I knew the kind of family I wanted for my kids.
Right.
And the legacy that I wanted to leave.
Yes.
I wasn't divorced until after my kids were fully grown. So we got through all that. And now in these years where it would be the time, the season of life where you would start benefiting from the fruits of your labor, all that's just gone.
Right.
It's just gone. Then you have to go to a plan B. Without going into details, I tried to do that. What's the best case scenario, how this all can look now? And I was working on building that, and it was going decently for a while. And then circumstances, something happened, and now that's gone too.
Yeah.
It's just hard. You just think, what was this all for? Like, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's different types of grief.
Yeah.
I want to say this really carefully too, but if somebody loses a spouse to death,
Right.
there's so much support.
Compassion.
People show up. They know what to say for the most part. You know, people rally around, right? When your marriage dies, I mean, you're grieving it by yourself. And at the same time, trying to figure out how you put together a new life and how you take care of your kids and how you do all of these things. And look, the statistics even say it's like the second most stressful thing that can happen to a person after the death of a spouse. Divorce is like the second most stressful thing that could happen to a person. No matter who filed or who did what, it's just hard.
It is hard. And I think that's a really good point. And anybody that has been through it knows, but it is a death. It is a death that you grieve. And I think part of what I had to wrap my mind around when we talk about kind of being compassionate with myself or just accepting this is where you are. Too bad. You don't get the life you wanted, you know? I started thinking, okay, but is it better to live a lie? Is it better to be married so that you can say you're not divorced, but you're actually living a lie?
Right.
You're not being authentic. You're pretending so that you have the appearance that this marriage is what God intended it to be, but it's just a performance.
Right.
It's not real. So then is that better than I'm living a completely dishonest life? And one thing, I don't know if it was in that book or somebody else said that was really helpful to me, is a divorce certificate. It's kind of like a death certificate. When somebody dies, you get a death certificate. The death certificate did not kill the person. The death certificate is just a legal paper that says they are in fact dead. Same thing with the divorce decree.
Yeah.
Getting that decree, that piece of paper, is not what killed the marriage. It's simply a death certificate of the marriage, stating what is in fact true. That helped me a little bit more. I'm not going to pretend like this was an easy process or that I still have even gotten to 100% of just radical acceptance.
Yeah.
I think it's a process, and the grief we talk about, it's not linear. I still bump into things that cause me to get a little emotional. I mean, it's less and less all the time, but it's not linear.
Right.
Grief isn't linear. The time frame isn't the same for everybody. It is so individual. You can circle back around. You think you make progress. You circle back around. Over time, you are making progress, but it's just not linear. It's just not a linear.
No, it's not. And I think I've co-parented since my kids were tiny. And a person who done a lot of harm to me, I needed to continue to have contact with. It's hard. I mean, so many times, like things that you thought you'd forgive and get bumped up again. And it's a process.
You wrestle with what is forgiveness? What does that look like? What does it mean? So you have to wrestle with all of that, because it's okay to be angry. You're going to be angry, but that whole, like, I don't want to allow myself to get to a point where I am bitter. And then that's just my identity for the rest of my life. I'm still angry 20 years from now about what happened 2 decades prior. And so what does that look like? And then forgiving yourself too.
Yes. There's a lot of fear of the unknown when it comes to divorce.
For sure.
I'm years out from this, and I still have conversations with you frequently that I just don't have with other people, because other people have a spouse, and so they plan together and all of these things. And I find that, like, as seasons of my life change, then I have different worries. You know, I fear things like, for example, where am I going to live in 5 years?
Right.
Because I can't stay where I am.
Right.
Or, you know, it comes time to buy a new vehicle, and that's all on you.
Yeah.
You know, the financial commitment of it, but the whole process, when things come up with your kids and you're the primary parent, that's all on you. To be honest, if I let myself start down that road, I mean, I can spiral real fast. And I just have to tell myself, this is good advice that a friend gave me a long time ago. Nothing ever makes sense on paper, but it always works out. Just try to figure it out one day at a time, I guess.
Yeah, and I think security is a big thing for women. And that's why I think things like financial security and having, you know, knowing what roof is going to be over your head, all those things are really important. And I think that's continued. Even, I mean, that was one of my biggest stressors. Like, how is this going to change? Am I moving? Is he moving? You know, what do we do? A year, almost to the day after the divorce was final, I had an accident. Couldn't work. They held my job for 14 months, which was incredibly gracious of them. But I wasn't recovered enough to go back to work. So I lost my job. I just remember thinking, really, the life as I knew it and as I had planned it and wanted it, I've lost my family in some kind of way.
Yeah.
And now I've lost my ability to support myself.
Yeah.
I had already been concerned because I made a decent living, but my ex made probably 4/5 of our income.
Yeah.
So it was already this huge adjustment to me. And now I'm looking at, this is exactly what I was afraid of.
Sure.
How do I support myself? You just think, really, like, how much can a person take?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Now I've been provided for and I'm okay as of today, day of recording. I'm still alive.
Yeah.
I got food. Yeah, there's that stressor. You don't have a safety net. You don't have anybody else to lean on.
Right.
You got to figure everything out and totally take care of yourself. It's a lot. It's a lot.
As hard as that is, like the fear of the unknown, I think being in a marriage with somebody who's not a partner, it's almost worse.
Yeah.
Because you carry all that weight. There's somebody there with you who's supposed to be carrying it with you.
And isn't.
And they don't. But when you're by yourself,
Yep.
and I wouldn't say I do it as much as I used to. For sure, it's not nearly as frequent. Initially, when you're trying to make this adjustment, you look around at all these other people around
Yeah.
you. You're surrounded by it. It feels like people who have good support and people,
Yeah.
you know, who have a person, and it just makes your heart ache.
It does. I really felt like, and I said this often, there is no loneliness like the kind of loneliness when you're, you know, you're married. So you're sharing a bed with somebody who, and being lonely is much worse than me just being by myself and being lonely.
Yes.
And that gets to what you're saying. There is nothing more lonely than being with your partner in a room and feeling like the most alone.
Yeah.
It's way harder to deal with, at least from a mental standpoint. If I'm alone, it makes sense. Of course, I feel lonely, you know?
Right.
But I also remember having to get to the point of, like, on an intellectual level, I realize it doesn't really matter where I live. There's a lot of things you can live without.
Right.
What I've learned is you can be just as unhappy in a nice house with nice things as you can be in a not so nice house with not so nice things, and vice versa.
Right.
You can be awful miserable.
We'll talk about this probably another time, but like the peace that comes
Yeah.
when you're not living with something that causes you so much pain is indescribable.
And how much I didn't realize it was affecting my well-being and my health.
Yep.
How much of my nervous system was activated constantly.
Right.
How the ups and downs of I'd be okay for a couple days and then be a bawling, crying mess and couldn't function for a couple days.
Yeah.
Like, it just is not good. But I didn't even realize how bad it was.
Right.
And I will just say, it's not like the veil magically lifts once you decide to get divorced or the divorce is final. It took a year or two before I could say, I feel like the fog is lifting a little bit. It's just a lot to sort out.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, but the fear of the unknown too. We talked about financial stuff, but it's a lot. It's like, how are people going to feel about you? How are my kids going to process this? Am I going to be single for the rest of my life? Will I ever be happy?
Yeah.
I think for me, also at the same time as all of this, I was just entering empty nest. And so that was already a crisis in and of itself.
Right.
It was so important to me. I just, like I said, was intentional and always thought, if there's one thing at the end of my life that I want to be able to not have any regrets or many regrets, it's how I showed up for my kids.
Yes, same.
And the kind of mom that I was. Again, not perfect, made mistakes. What I am saying is I was so intentional about it. Once your kids are grown, sure, you'll always have a relationship with them, but it's like, it's different. You're not raising them anymore. They don't need you anymore. You don't have that same kind of role. You're already grappling with, what is my life? Who am I?
Yeah.
I knew my mission. I knew what my purpose was for all those years. And I was in this place where I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. I don't know what makes me useful
Yeah.
or relevant. How can I continue to have a purpose and to contribute to this world?
Yeah.
And what is that vision? So that's hard too. And another thing that you kind of, you fear, and I still do to some extent, about, I didn't want to feel like I'm just waiting around for my life to be over, you know,
Right.
because everything I was supposed to do is done.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
for sure that's not true, but it's an identity crisis in and of itself. And then when you're not a wife anymore and all these different things,
It would be a lot at one time.
well, it is. I mean,
Yes.
and going through divorce, you have to take time and figure out, like, who am I and how do I think of myself and how do I identify now? And we've already said it, but just grappling with that, like, this is not who I set out to be or the life that I set out to have.
Right.
Yeah.
It was really difficult for me early on when my kids would have events and I would go by myself. Like, you know that you need to be there for your kids. I was new to the community that we live in. I hadn't made a lot of friends when my life blew up, and I went to everything by myself. That was hard. And I mean, it took years for me to not feel that way. My parents would often come and go with me to some things, and that was helpful, but I still felt like I was there by myself in some ways. Church was really hard for me after being divorced. It's hard for me to think of any other place where there's so much coupling as there is in a church auditorium. So you just look around, and it's like you're hyper aware all of a sudden of all these people around you who are together. Like, I don't know that I would have noticed any of that before, but you just start to see, you look at the world around you and it's like you can't figure out how you fit in it anymore.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly right. There were some challenges and small victories like, oh, okay, big goal. I'm going to go to a movie by myself. I did it. I feel so good. I'm so good. Same thing. I purposely went and ate at a restaurant once by myself. Those things were nothing compared to places where it just doesn't make as much sense to be alone. All the places you mentioned. I will even say for a couple years, going to the extended family holiday things.
Yes.
Nobody was making me feel this way or trying to. I felt so alone. It was just different. Like, it's different being there alone.
It is.
I talked about movies and eating out, but there's a lot of things that I'm just not going to go do by myself. I don't know. I'm not going to go to some social events by myself. If I don't have somebody, girlfriend or otherwise to go with me, I'm not going to just roll up by myself. Just not gonna. Then I think also it was probably, I don't know, I'm just going to guess like 4 years after the divorce. There was the first wedding in the family. My niece got married. And I was not expecting how I felt sitting there during that service.
There's something about weddings, isn't there?
Yeah.
I had an experience this summer. I went to a wedding and there's that part of it. But then there was a little part of me that was also like, I'm not sure I actually believe what they're saying.
Right. Right. Or they don't know what they're saying. Exactly.
And I was like, who am I? That was a weird thought.
Yeah. And it's not in a way of, I should, still be married. Like, I knew it was still the best thing where I was. It's that death of a dream, right? It's I don't know if you want to say fairy tale or whatever, but growing up, I shared a room with my sister and we slept in bunk beds, and I would lay there and I would try to imagine, what will life be like when I'm an adult? What will my family be? What will my husband, what will my kids be like? I can tell you, Jenny, not ever one time in those imaginings did I imagine, what I saw is holding hands and ring around the rosy, sort of twirling each other around. Happiness.
We didn't imagine any of the bad stuff.
No, I don't want to say fairy tale, but that what marriage represents, the loss of that, it was really hard.
Yeah.
But then also just to be at such a big event and be alone. And then I was somewhere with my son, and again, it's not like I can't take care of myself, but I was a little overwhelmed, a little overly tired. There had been too much activity or whatever, and I really just was in a place I needed some rest. And I started tearing up and crying and remembering, like, well, at least if I still had my husband, I could send him to go get me some breakfast and bring it back to the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just little things like that, it catches you by surprise.
It does.
Like, you just don't know that's when you're going to have a certain moment. Yeah.
Kind of along those lines. A loss for me was my in-laws.
Yeah.
Who I love dearly. It was so abrupt, like you go from years of being intertwined in each other's lives and having a close relationship. And it was my entire extended family from my in-laws that I just lost overnight.
Yeah.
That I think caused me probably more grief than anything else. That was hard.
Yeah, it is hard.
No matter what, it's not my story to tell,
Right. That's a good point. Early on, when we were just in the thick of it and not divorced yet, one of his family members asked me what was going on, and I felt like this is gonna have to be his support system, and I probably don't need to be in the ears of any of them. I would have loved to say what was going on, but that would be my perspective, right? And that I needed to allow his support system to be his support system, and like you said, for him to tell his story. But I will say there's a lot of stress of that too. I worried a lot about how am I being conveyed, what's being said. You don't have any control over that.
Right.
I think you're right. Besides your own relationship with those people, you've been through this with kids still at home, right? I haven't. Irregardless of their age, there's now this, my kids and grandchildren are such a big part of my life, and now they have this whole life with a family that I used to be a part of for 3 decades. That I am not included in and don't get to be a part of anymore. And so there's so much of their life that I just don't get to observe even. I don't get to experience. I don't get the inside jokes. It's the same, I'm sure it's heart-wrenching when kids are still at home to not be with them if you have to be in a situation where you're not with them all the time. But I do think I have felt dismissed a little bit sometimes because of the fact that my children were already grown. And it's different. I'm not saying it's the same, but there is pain there too, because there's just so much they're now doing and experiencing that I don't get to be a part of.
Right.
And it was with people that I used to. It's hard. You know, when your kids get married, now you have to navigate holidays. They have to spend some of them with the in-laws and some of them with us. So that's already a situation. Yeah. And now it's further divided. Our half is divided in half. And so it's just in those big moments, I do feel a little heartache, you know?
You were talking about, you know, all those adjustments that you make when you have older kids around holidays, and that's a little down the road for me. But when a custody agreement is reached, you make these decisions at the time. The first holiday that I did not have my kids was...
Yes.
The first Christmas that I didn't have them was... I mean, I felt that deeply. It's just you never expect your life to be that way. And I had to get to a place for sure where I would look at those things as like I tell myself, you know what, Jenny, it's just a day on the calendar.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have your celebration with them and it's going to be great. Today is just a day on the calendar. Or I've never been in a 50-50 custody situation. I can't imagine what it's like to be without your kids half the time. I think over time it gets better for sure. I mean, you go from this mode of like all you do all the time is just be with your kids and take care of your kids, and then all of a sudden you're not there. And I mean, there's no quiet like that where your house is just empty and it's just you. And I was thankful that at the time I had a friend who was also going through a divorce. I had on those weekends somebody to do things with if I wanted to, but I had to be so intentional about planning what I was going to do at that time, because if I didn't, I would just sit there and feel sorry for myself.
Right. And that's a good point, because that's a hard balance too. It's like you don't want to stuff your feelings. It's good to acknowledge them. We know feelings aren't always truth. How do you acknowledge your feelings and let yourself feel them, but at the same time not let yourself just wallow and spiral down into this rabbit hole? There have been a couple times, I haven't done this a lot, but there's been a couple times where I'm like, I'm going to set a timer and I am going to have a pity party for myself for the next 20 minutes. I'm going to do that.
I think it's healthy.
Party of one.
That's right.
Pity party. Yeah. But then when the timer goes off, I need to redirect my mind, do something. And I will tell you that it's hard. And depression is a whole nother issue. And we can, you know, it's a whole nother topic. But it can be hard. The energy that is robbed of you and stuff when you're dealing with depression. But laying there with your own thoughts or sitting there with your own thoughts, it's hard.
It is hard.
But when you're in the depth of despair and going through some real depression, it's also hard to find the energy to get up and do something to redirect. That's a whole nother having to have strategies for that. And I remember getting kind of mad one time at somebody who was very well intentioned, but I had said something I was feeling. Immediately, the conversation went to trying to talk me out of it. Like, but look at all these wonderful da-da-da-da-da. And I'm sure I have been that person. But I, in that moment, I guess felt safe enough to say, like, listen, I am going to feel what I'm feeling right now for a few minutes. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
You know,
for you.
I always bounce back. I always get over it and I will be fine. And maybe you're just not the person I can complain or whatever you want to call it right in the moment when I just need to say out loud what's going on. You know, it wasn't that contentious, but I'm just saying, don't let people guilt you out of, you can't feel bad about what you're going through. It's a balance. It's a tricky balance. But be honest. I think we want to be authentic. I've said to you, I don't trust people that don't have problems. If you don't have problems, then I probably don't want to be your friend. You know, I don't understand any world where that could be true. Did you don't have any problems at all? That tells me you're not a very honest person, or you're not willing to be vulnerable. I think that's the journey I'm on, right? Like I want to be as authentic as possible. So,
well, I mean, even in friendship, you can't go deep with people if they're not willing to show you that they also struggle.
Right.
I mean, it just stays at this level that's so superficial. Like I would not have anything in common with these people long term.
Right. Have you ever had a situation where you realize maybe they're good at asking questions and you always make yourself vulnerable, and then one day you realize, like, wait, I don't get that same vulnerability in return. Vulnerability can be dangerous.
Yes, it's a risk.
And things can really be used against you. And I had something else I was going to say about that, but I forgot. I remember the therapist I was seeing said to me, the one thing that all of us humans have in common, human suffering, is the thing that we all have it. And so that is the thing that allows us to relate to each other and to identify with each other. So if you have somebody else who claims that they've never had any suffering and they don't have any problems, then it's really hard to relate to you as a human.
Yeah.
Because it's just a common experience that we all have.
Is the verse is, I'm not going to get this right, but it's suffering produces endurance and perseverance, right?
Yeah.
And I, have walked some roads, and you have walked some roads, and it's easy to look at your own life and see that to be true in your own life. But I recently heard somebody talking about that. I think it was the Robertson family after Phil passed away, and they were talking about how when people suffer well, how that produces perseverance and endurance for other people. And I thought, if you're not open with in an appropriate way,
right, exactly.
If you're not vulnerable with your story, then people miss out on that.
Right. It's not like it hasn't crossed my mind, and I'm sure yours too. Like, this is a very vulnerable topic, and we're putting it out here for anybody who has an internet connection, strangers. Yeah, I guess it's a risk I'm willing to take because I know that I got a lot of encouragement, a lot of strength, or a lot of help, a lot of growing just from so many things, whether it was YouTube videos or books or hearing people talk about their story or friendships or sitting down one-on-one. Like, there were so many moments where a person might not have set out with the goal of like, oh, I want to give Kelly Jo a word for her to hold on to today, something that she's always going to remember. But those things just happen. And I can't go back and tell you specifically, but little by little by little by little, there's little things that you hear or you grab onto or you realize, I'm not alone in this. Other people feel this way or whatever it is, that sometimes you just need that couple minutes of encouragement. We can maybe do this later too, but there were some books that were like instrumental to me along the way, and a certain couple people that I somehow stumbled across and watched many videos of online. And maybe it's different for everybody, but it was very timely for me. Yeah. So
for me, like when I'm going through something, I need to understand it.
Yeah.
And so you look for books, you look for podcasts, you look for things like where it acts as support in a way, especially when it's something like divorce where it's just hard for people who are normally in your life to relate.
And can we just go back? I need to say this. I think we started off talking about judgment. One thing I need to be honest enough to admit, and I have a lot of regret about, I didn't mean to be, but I think that in some ways I was judgmental.
Oh, me too.
Towards it.
Me too.
In a whole way that I can never be again now that I've walked through it. Don't you know your marriage is supposed to succeed no matter what? Like, there is a lot that has come out of this that I have had to face about myself. And I'm glad it's painful. Yeah. But I don't want to be the person that lives in denial about everything. But some of those lessons are really painful. Yeah. I hope that I've never really hurt anyone. Who knows how I came across, but I regret, I grieve that. I feel remorse. I didn't understand. Right. I didn't understand it. There are people who are very well intentioned and very empathetic, and they will do their absolute best to put themselves in your shoes and walk with you and love you, and they do. You still can't understand it on the same level
as when you've experienced it.
And you can't articulate it either. Yeah. I wouldn't be able to help you understand because it's so in the depths of your being. Yeah.
You saying that reminded me when I was going through the process of getting divorced, somebody that I had known for years, probably a couple years before that, gotten divorced, and it was kind of messy in the church that we attended. And I remember at the time feeling like I probably didn't have all the information, but I really didn't know what to do to help anybody or whatever. And then when you find yourself in it, I thought of her. I felt a significant need to reach out to her and apologize for just not being more present. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. But I think that's something that's happened for me after the fact is I'm just a little more sensitive to what people are walking through.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You've been really good about saying you want to be careful, and you have been careful, but I don't want to give the wrong impression either. I hope this is landing, all of this, how we intend it to be. This isn't a huge bashing of church or church people or anything like that. We're just trying to be honest, and I doubt that there aren't other people out there that can relate to feeling these kinds of things. And I think that some of the people that we felt it from don't realize it too. And some of them would probably be horrified to know that's the impact I'm having. You know, it's not like you said, I don't think I was ever angry at God either, but I was angry at a lot of things.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm still in denial about that. I don't know. I didn't walk away from my faith. I didn't lose my relationship that I had with God. And I don't discourage people from being connected in a church. It's just that sometimes the place where you should feel the safest or you think you should just doesn't feel safe. We don't realize maybe that we're shooting arrows into our people that are already wounded.
Oh, right. That's so well said, Kelly Jo. I mean, you mentioned like not walking away from your faith, and like, my goodness, there is not a chance that I would still be standing today had it not been for my faith.
Right. Me too.
In those moments, I'm going to get all emotional now myself.
Okay.
In those moments where you're hurting so badly, like Jesus becomes so sweet to you, you know? I don't even know how to describe it, but like, there's no comfort like what he can provide in those types of seasons. And I mean, there's no way that I would still be standing today if it weren't for that.
I agree with you 100%. I think for me, what part of my challenge in that was I had to work through fearing that Jesus himself was mad at me.
That's a real thing, I think, for so many of us, because we're just, for so long, you believe it's such a bad thing.
Yeah. I was like so afraid of making the wrong decision or being displeasing. I think I had to face some hard things too. Part of my anger was this wasn't supposed to happen to me. Not me. I've tried so hard. I've worked so hard.
Right.
And one of the things that was really hard for me to admit when I had the realization is, Kelly Jo, why did you ever think that just because you have faith and you try to walk that faith out, that you get to be exempt from things like this?
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
This is a fallen, sinful world. And why are you so special that you get to be exempt from the consequences of other people's or your own destruction, sin, whatever you want to call it? I don't. Why am I so surprised? I wouldn't have thought that I was being prideful, but that's really prideful to think this can't reach me or, it's not supposed to happen to people like me. Why? Why? What is so special about me? And also realizing that in some ways, my marriage and my children, my family unit had become an idol to me in some ways. If there's anything in your life that you are just convinced you cannot be happy without it, you might want to take a look in your life. And that's hard because it's important and it should be important. But if I'm being honest, I think sometimes they took precedence when they shouldn't have, even over what I should have been doing with my own faith.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. No, I think we've all been there. I had similar thoughts for sure. Up until that point, I felt like if I did this, this, and this, everything was fine. I mean, yeah, you're right. None of us are exempt from suffering.
And I think the other thing that I realized too is I'm the oldest of 4 children. And I think that I have had this subconscious, sometimes conscious, but really I have been carrying this burden around that I am supposed to be the one that has it together. I'm supposed to be the example. Whatever. I don't mean that to sound prideful, but it was a burden I placed on myself. I remember thinking shortly after I got through my teenage years, if my siblings make really bad choices, it was because I was a bad example.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. And can I just say too, you talked about loss of extended family, but also I think for some people, loss of friendship, especially if you had other couples that you were friends with.
Right. No, you're so right. I mean, it's been a lot of years, but at the time, people definitely pick sides.
Yeah.
I think early on, people try to not do that, and then it just kind of slowly happens.
You just don't get invited to some places you used to because you're not coupled up or whatever. I think I've shared with you someone describe it as when you get married, it's like taking glue and gluing 2 pieces of paper together. And then you go and you try to separate those 2 pieces of paper. You can't without damaging both of them. You just can't.
Right.
And that's what divorce is kind of about.
Oh, yeah, that's a good word picture for sure. I think what continues to be hard after divorce is like you're not responsible for everything.
Everything.
I just think so many times like I'll look back and I'll be like, I was working full time. My kids were barely in school.
Yeah.
I'd work all day, come home, I'd make dinner, we'd do homework, I'd put them to bed.
Yeah.
You know, and then you have a couple hours to yourself.
Yeah.
To kind of regroup or whatever, and then you just keep going and you just
Right.
keep going, and then you kind of get in a routine, and it's probably good for everybody to be in that routine, and it was certainly good for me to have plenty to do. But then something happens, like I think I had to have my oil changed on my car.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law offered to do it for me. He texted me, this is so funny, he texted me and he was like, had this picture, I didn't even know what it was, and he had this picture and he's like, Jenny, this is an air filter and you have to change them. He's like, has this ever been changed?
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, you're asking the wrong person.
That's right. No, I agree. And I think I've been able to find the humor in some of those moments from time to time. But those small victories, the first time you have to do anything and you conquer it. It's
Yes.
like you either, find the sense of humor of it, or you're like, I am so awesome.
Oh, for sure.
I'm a warrior.
Yes.
Like
I know.
Like if it's the first time you have to change the water filter in the refrigerator,
Mm-hmm.
or like somebody asked me, have you changed the, what is it, furnace filter or whatever?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'm like, you have to do that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like every 3 months. Oh, really? Like first figuring out where it was, then where do I even buy them?
Yeah.
And what size do I need?
Yeah.
The first time I pulled mine out, I don't know if it's the angle or what, but man, that was like
Was it pretty dirty?
well, it was a wrestling.
it's tricky.
Me versus the furnace. I couldn't get it out. The first, you said oil change. First, I was never responsible for that. And the first time I had to have an oil change, I took it to some place I saw on the corner in town. He asked me, I think it was, do you know what kind of oil you put in this? And is this a test? I didn't know I was coming here to take a test. Like, there's more than one kind of oil. I don't know. Just, can't you figure it out? But I also felt so incompetent. And here's the thing for both of us, I think. We're obviously competent people. We handle a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's not like we're ditzy, like, oh, I need somebody to do everything for me. But if it's not the stuff you've been doing, for the first year and a half, I had an alarm go off every Sunday night, or otherwise I'd forget to put my trash out.
Well, yeah, because it wasn't something you were doing.
No, it wasn't on my radar. Things like yard care, and I know the first time I needed to change the locks on my door for some reason. I thought, where do you even start with this? YouTube, you could get this little kit and you could just rekey the ones you already had, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's empowering in a way.
It
for
is,
sure.
but it can also be in those moments where you get really mad.
Yes, you're right.
Or you have a
You're right.
breakdown
Yep.
and you just start bawling. It just depends on where you're at. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. It's not linear. And sometimes you'll get a good laugh out of it, and sometimes you'll drop to your knees and cry. I kept asking myself, when am I going to be over this? When am I going to be done grieving? That's about as helpful as like having surgery on your knee, and every day that you're recovering, asking yourself, why won't this knee heal faster? How much healing happened today? It happens when it happens, and it's
Right.
time, and everybody's body heals at physically
Yes.
different paces too. So it's
Maybe
a
we
big
should
time.
wrap up with this. I feel like you and I had this conversation months ago about beauty from ashes.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us cling to that verse in the Old Testament about how there'll be beauty from ashes. And I've always believed that. I believe what I shared with you was after some healing, right?
Right.
How maybe part of the beauty that comes is us.
Right.
Like the healing that happens in
Yeah.
us. When it's fresh and you're walking through it, it feels so hard and impossible, and you feel alone. There's beauty on the other side somewhere.
It's hard to feel that in the depths of your soul when you're walking
Yeah.
through it. Yeah. Well, thanks for being so open and
Yeah.
sharing
You too.
yourself with everyone.
It's a different vibe today.
It's a different vibe,
but needed to be said.
It needed. Listen, life is not always funny.
That's
right. All right. Well, thanks.
We belong. We're arriving, arriving, arriving. Hearts bring us on. Love by God's grace.
Thank you for listening. Remember to like and subscribe to our channel. at JK Podcast Life Unexpected. If you found this episode enjoyable, please share it with a friend and help us grow. We would love to hear from you by either commenting on this episode or sending us an email at jkunexpectedpodcast@gmail.com. That's jkunexpectedpodcast@gmail.com.